Today we'll be highlighting the relevance of African dReps and listening to, a few relevant African dReps who are out there on some hot issues that they're facing. Yeah, so just to remind us all of our statement of purpose here at the Wada Forum, our mission is to elevate underrepresented groups through the application of technology and invest in a more equitable future. Next slide, we have our schedule for today's event. So we'll start with a welcome and some opening remarks from Mercy, and then go into, sorry, I just did the the welcome and opening remarks. Then there's an introductory address by Mercy, and then we'll lead into a panel discussion, followed by some more panel discussion, scoping out some initial ideas for solutions. And then we'll close with an open floor for the audience, Q&A, and then last closing remarks and next steps. So at this point, I would like to pass the microphone over to Mercy to give us an introduction and kick off our event.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Megan. Thank you, all the panelists, and thanks to everyone that is joining us. So we are in Zoom, and we are streaming to X as well. So if anybody knows anyone that wants to join, please tag them, call them, message them, because today we have a very important topic for discussion. And this topic, we are going to tackle it over 2 sessions. So today, what we're going to do is to look at challenges that, especially African dReps, but it can very well apply to also South Asian dReps, LATAM dReps, in terms of, some of the challenges that, like regionally, where there isn't a lot of ADA. We're going to look at, as I said, explore some of the challenges from the dReps' own perspectives. And the next session, which is going to be the 1st of May, what we're going to do is that we are going to be more solution focused. As I said, welcome everyone. Megan is going to ask the tough questions. The reason that we think that this is a session that needs doing is the fact that, when we look at especially the African dReps, the group that comprises the African dReps actually have the lowest delegation. It's at this point, it's about 0.34. And as we know, going forward, there is a lot of roles that the dReps need to be playing. They need to, look at the proposals that are coming in, especially with regards to the budgets and so on. And there are going to be a lot of other roles that the dReps will be playing. So in this time of governance, absolutely very important about the role of the dReps. So this session, in addition to looking at some of the challenges that the dReps are facing, is also a time to, let the world know, let the Cardano world know that it's important to delegate to dReps, especially in emerging economies, where we know that there is a lot of opportunity, but also, sometimes it just doesn't cut when it comes to dRep delegation. When we look at the top 50 to 100 dReps, maybe we can find very few, from regions such as Africa. We have a champion here, and I do want to give a very honorable mention to Ben. Ben is from IO. He handles the dRep forum on X. He's also doing a lot of work in Discord regarding the dRep collective, also doing some ecosystem mapping work. He's been very vocal in terms of his support for African dReps. I want to give him a few minutes to say some of the things that we've talked about, especially when we're in Nairobi. And I'm so happy that a lot of the dReps that we currently have on this call actually are also delegates. So these are seasoned people that understand the issues at stake. And these conversations, as I said, a lot of it began in Nairobi. So Ben, over to you, just a few words and then we'll hand over to Megan.
Okay. Briefly, the dRep Forum and the work that we started there started off in Nairobi. It was a pivotal moment for me in thinking about how Africa can provide value and have its voice heard. So some of the things I've talked about with people like Mercy and Kit and Maureen is how we diversify delegation, how we can create distribution channels for new dReps so they can be discovered, and also the opportunities that are there. So I'll touch on all those briefly. The dRep Forum today, where it's standing, is there were 550 members and over 51% of all delegation in Cardano is represented within that dRep Forum. I would also say that recently we had a dRep mod called BTFBF, who is the operator of the largest Japanese SPO guild, and he's become a mod. So we're going to be strengthening our ties to Japan, where over 40% of ADA is. And I think that's relevant for the people on this call and for African dReps, because we've created a neutral space. It's not owned by O, it's not owned by any of the entities. It has representatives and mods from different spaces. And over the coming months, I want to work with the people on this call and the people within the African dRep community to ensure that they are being heard and they can participate in really meaningful ways, right? Where you're really providing value. The other thing I would do is shout out to my dRep, which is Maureen, who I met in Nairobi. And at that time, I was mad encouraging her to do it. And, she's overcome all kinds of barriers. The registration fee that me and Kit are kind of talking about how to help African dReps overcome. And she's one of the best dReps right now. Like I just been amazed at what a strong voice she's got. And she's pushing back in all of the right places. And that's who I'm currently delegating my ADA to. So the little ADA that I have. So I just want to thank everybody in Nairobi that met me. And I want to encourage everybody to have that positivity for massive transformational action. And I also think that the African community strengthening its relationships with the Japanese community is a real opportunity over the next few months. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Mercy, for the mic.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, today I did have a call with Kavinda in terms of some of these collaborations. So we just need to put some legs on all the things that we've been talking about. And thank you very much, Ben. Over to you, Megan.
Yeah, thanks for the inspiring introduction. Now I want to introduce the next session, which is really our panel discussion, where we talk about the current landscape of African dReps. So I want to invite all of the dReps who are here as part of our panel to come on camera if you can, but maybe you can't because of network issues. And first, I want to just start with maybe a roundtable of introductions. Tell us about, what made you become a dRep and a little bit about what your dRep is about. So maybe we could start with Laurentine. You could talk about Incuba, and then we'll go over to Seydou.
Thank you very much, Megan. And thank you, everybody, for having me here today. My name is Laurentine Jata, and I am the Incuba Hub dRep. I'm serving as a bridge between the global Cardano ecosystem and Francophone communities across Africa and beyond. And since 2022, I have been deeply involved in community building, technical education, and governance participation in Burkina Faso. As a native French speaker who is also fluent in English, I found myself in a unique position to connect communities that could otherwise remain separated by language barriers. And I've served as a constitutional delegate, translated a draft Cardano constitution into French, And currently, I host the weekly Cardano Francophone Corner to ensure our communities stay connected. And my work is driven by a simple belief. I think that for Cardano to truly succeed in Africa and globally, we must make governance and participation accessible across language barriers. So that is why inclusive governance through linguistic accessibility also has become my core mission. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Next, Sadhu, and then we'll come to you, Darlington.
All right. Good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you are catching us from there. Siri Zebulon once again is here. So basically, my corner, my perspective from becoming a dReps, I'll just start from that angle to my introduction. I joined Cardano late 2021. So towards 2022, that was when the governance of the ecosystem was starting. So I needed to be a place where I could place myself very well and then be impactful and then be relevant in my contribution and stacks. So on my co-founder, which is Mohamed Mustafa, co-founder of Cardano Ghana community, he was much particular about the onboarding educational initiatives. So where I took the shovel or the angle of governance of the ecosystem. So I read through the roadmap and I was so excited to be part of it. So fast forward, I was able to get two catalyst projects were centered on governance to educate the Ghanaian Cardano enthusiasts on the need for them to prepare for delegated representatives or Cardano governance to see. The first one was direct on board and empowering the Cardano Ghana community. The second was a 1694 governor working group of the Ghanaian community. And I also participated in the direct code of conduct document, a workshop which was hosted here in Ghana, in Accra. We participated to see the document being drafted very well so that direct could be able to function well in the ecosystem. So, and then to the Constitutional Convention, we're part of it, are hosted here in Tamale, Ghana. And then fast forward, I have to just be part of people. It will not be cool for us to be running the Cardano governance and then in the entire Ghana community, we don't have dReps functioning. Even me, myself, having to been educating people to become dReps, I have to definitely represent them well. And why represent them? For transparent governance or for transparency in the Cardano ecosystem. A lot of our community members are asking why this is happening and this is not supposed to be happening. Why is it happening this way? We have to be there to explain to them why. So a lot of our community members are lagging behind when it comes to the transition of the ecosystem. So we are here to let them or to break it down to them to their understanding. Thank you.
Thanks, Darlington, and then we'll go to Kit.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Will you give me the prompt again, Megan? Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, I'm just introducing yourself, why you became a dRep.
All right. Right. I became a dRep for the same reason I sort of participate in other areas of Cardano. I'm Darlington. I go between the US and Kenya and Liberia, most of the work. Me and some now good friends do a Lighter Nation, happens online on Twitter and in East Africa, Kenya largely, Nairobi. We're building a beautiful space that I hope we can have this conversation in someday in the future with the help of Wada. Thanks, Wada. Right, I've always loved being part of impacting the future generation, the folks learning to crawl. That's where I've thrived. I taught Sunday school. When I had a fiat job, I will always have one or two people I'm mentoring that I meet once a week and who wants to get into programming, and we'll sit with them and solve problems with them. So of course, when I discovered Cardano, my very next thought was, okay, who can I bring along? Who can I take from the crawling stage and get them, to be self-sufficient and thriving in the space? So we, in that vein, we do a lot of Twitter spaces, a lot of helping people, pointing people in the right direction, communicating. We publish a new article every Monday on Light Nation. We have a mentorship training program in Nairobi, Kenya, developing the next generation of Cardano builders who can take business problems and use blockchain solutions to help solve them. And so the being part of the dRep body allows me to be able to see, help increase the peripheral of everybody making decisions everywhere around the world for everyone, on how these baby crawlers, what they need and what they're missing, what will help them excel better, faster, more confidently. Yeah, so that's what I try to do in the space as a dRep and just as a general educator. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's glad to have you. And I just realized for those of you who have your name on your Zoom call, you could add whatever your dRep name is to that as well. Because like Darlington, I think yours is under Lido Nation, right? Awesome. So then I want to bring up Kit to introduce herself, and then we'll go to Maureen after.
Hi. Thank you, Megan. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. So my name is Mubarak Oladimiji, but many of you know me by Kit Willow. I started learning blockchain in 2017, but I didn't get my hands dirty until about 2019, mid 2019, the COVID period. Yeah, so I started contributing as a community writer, like a writer. 'Cause I come from a fictional writing background, and then I started learning. It was mostly Ethereum-based projects and Solana-based projects, and then just any project I could get my hands on them, right? I didn't never heard of Cardano at that time, so I learned. I learned a lot of things. I went to attended a couple of courses, attended a couple of trainings. Some of them I completed, some of them I dropped out from. So yeah, I started my uh, I actually started my course on becoming an affiliate marketer, a content marketer in blockchain on a Binance. I took a Binance affiliate marketing course. That was about 2021, right? And ultimately, I found myself in Cardano. Actually, I was actually onboarded by. I want to give the props to Ubio down here, right? I was onboarded by Ubio and his team when they came to my university into Cardano, and I started contributing as soon as I can. I founded Next Trend Labs, which is really a company that utilizes the blockchain and artificial intelligence to solve societal problems in Nigeria and Africa, which is part of some of what we're trying to do today. And along the line, this year, I left Next Trend Labs and I'm building a couple of other things on the side. I'm working as a dRep. I am contributing my experience and skill in Intersect. And yeah, that's basically just me.
Welcome. And I know, Kit, before the call, you mentioned that your bandwidth wouldn't allow you to turn on your camera, but we're glad that you're still able to join us even without. So next we'll hear from Maureen, and then we'll go to the Wada dRep.
Hi, everybody. All right. Okay, I'm supposed to start with why I became a dRep. I became a dRep because I wanted to help the community where people don't feel like they don't matter because their ADA is too small. And I believe that in governance, in fact, we prove that. What's the word I'm looking for here? We have proven that in governance, everyone is important. That is why when we were doing the constitution drafting and signing, it wasn't the people with large ADA bags that came. It was everybody who could, who was chosen by their community to come. And so I think Cardano is that community, even if we struggle with all kinds of, blockchain rules, we are also a community of people where voices are important. And so being a dRep is just my way of trying to bring that aspect of Cardano to light and ensuring that people with even the least amount of ADA can be represented in governance. And that's why my dRep name is Stakeless dRep. Well, actually, the reason why it's stakeless is because when I became a dRep, I didn't have stake, and the community came through and gave me some stake to become a dRep. So it is interesting to see that somebody who doesn't have enough stake can actually offer something to the community, and the community believes that she can offer something. And that's why I think Africa, which is, of course, one of the regions with a lot of people that don't have large bags, can actually do something on Cardano. I was introduced to Cardano through a friend, a very good friend. He's more than a friend to me. He's like my mentor, my technical advisor, my my bully. Well, Joseph Memos it's sad that he's not here today due to several commitments, but he invited me to the synthesis workshop, and that was my first, not my first, the first encounter I actually had with Cardano was a hackathon, I believe, where I got some ADA and I sold it later, God forgive me. And later on, I was invited to the workshop and it was interesting. And ever since, I have been hooked. I became the delegate. I went to the convention. We signed the constitution, and then I became a dRep. And here we are. So I am happy to be here today to talk about the African dReps and some of the challenges we face and how we can include more people from Africa. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I think we have about 3 more people to introduce, but maybe we could switch it up a little bit, as well as obviously, saying who you are and where you're representing. Talk about what you find is the biggest motivator of becoming a dRep. So Nana Safo, you're up, and then we'll go over to the Goma dRep.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Thanks to Wada and Intercept for putting this together. I think I'm here, but not to talk as Nana Safo, but I'm here to talk as Wada dRep. So you all probably aware of Wada, been around since Fund 1, and Wada has done a lot of great work in terms of bridging the gap or serving as a bridge for the African community and also Cardano as an ecosystem. That is pretty much what has motivated us in setting up the Wada dRep, and that is the same drive that is sort of urging us to sort of drive on to ensure that the rest of the community, which is the African community, are not being left behind in terms of the ecosystem and its involvement. So yeah, we're happy to be here. We're happy to discuss whatever we have to do to ensure that our dream and mission is achieved truly. Thanks, Megan.
And then for Goma, is it Martin? Will you be speaking or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Martin. I hope you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Good. On behalf of the Goma dRep, my journey starts in the year 2020. I've been introduced by Chanti. I hope some of you know him, our university manager. That's how I started my journey within Cardano, and it was quite not easy, as I'm not coming from the kind of technical background and so on. So it was like hard to start learning all the new stuffs, all the terminologies and so on. But we made it, and I have been really very blessed to meet most of you in Nairobi. It was great moments to get to meet out of Zoom, out of all these platforms in real life. That was great. So in Goma, as the Goma community, we are more in community building. We are more focused in education. We've been doing this since our beginnings in the ecosystem, and actually we are having a particular focus on the Cardano governance, as we understand the importance of everyone to have a voice in what is going on what is being implemented, and we should not be left behind. So, as an introduction, I think that may be all, and I'm pleased to be here. And thank you for hosting us in such an environment.
Great, thank you as well. And now Ubio, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Hi everyone. This is Ubio here, representing the Remostat dRep. And so I would say, for me, two things actually motivated me to come up, motivated us to come up stage and try to represent the little voices. We do a critical work at Remostat, empowering people to get access to jobs. Obviously, as a Cardano native platform, primarily with Cardano related jobs, but obviously we've not focused only on the Cardano community. We've scaled, we've operated with different ecosystem tech stacks and blockchain. However, our goal has always been the fact that we believe that opportunities have to be decentralized. Opportunities are not just only for people who find themselves in privileged geographies and regions. And this can mean anything, even privilege in terms of can be from gender to sexual orientations to every other thing. We just believe that opportunities shouldn't just be limited in this way. So that's actually the mission of Remostat. So when the whole concept around dRep started, we actively participated. However, we didn't come up stage because we wanted to see how it was going. And so this brings me to the second motivation. One is the fact that we've onboarded a lot of people in Remostat through our work, and we felt like representing them would also be a good thing. But I think the core motivation for us was the fact that we felt that a lot of African voices were not stepping up the game, and we realized that a lot of us were waiting to get the big bucks until we step up, right? So we just wanted to see maybe our voices are not the loudest in Africa, but we just needed to step up and make like just say something. And so that was actually the second reason why we stepped up when we saw that the representation was not well balanced, and we felt like, okay, Africa needs a lot more voices, irrespective of how small the voices are. At least we need those voices. So one, we've onboarded a lot of people. We felt we needed to represent them. And two was because we just felt like we need more voices in Africa, and that's why we stepped up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Now I want to go into sort of some more targeted questions. So I'll ask individuals questions, but if anyone on the panel wants to add, if that question resonates with you, feel free to just raise your hand. So the first one I'm going to ask Maureen. You're part of a panel. Be ready. Well, I think you talked a lot about being new in this space, and some of what motivated you is the, desire to improve this process. So I wanted to focus a little bit on awareness and education, and in particular communication. I wanted to ask if you feel that there's, one channel, or what's the best way that you're able to communicate in this space related to governance?
So, before Cardano, I didn't know how Twitter works. That's a confession, by the way. Nobody should say that out of this meeting because I'm going to deny it. Oops, we have a recording. Okay.
We're screaming.
I think I found my way on Twitter Spaces. That's where I feel more comfortable discussing just randomly talking about governance, dReps, stake pool operators, and all kinds of things, because it's so random. You don't have to set up a meeting, because then you have to check your schedule, and always it's full, right? So you're passing around, you see a bunch of Cardano enthusiasts talking, you just jump right in. But I think a more structured approach, we had a dedicated group like the dRep Forum. It's actually working, because people are always scrolling on Twitter, especially Cardano people. I know that for sure. So we are always on Twitter and scrolling. And if you're in the dRep Forum, for example, you can always hop on the space. And now, as a dRep, most of the ways I communicate with actually the only way I communicate with my delegators, whom I don't really know, by the way. I just have their wallets on my profile. So the best way for me to get feedback from the community is through spaces. When I make a space, they come and I ask, what do you think about this? And that is how I learn, and I also kind of figure things out. So that's my own method. I know it's unconventional.
No, I think it speaks to, what your experience is. So that seems relevant. My next question is kind of open to everyone to answer, but I'll first ask Seydou. Do you know your delegators? Like, do you know who's delegating to you, and do you have a way to specifically talk to them?
Right. So on my delegators, I think it's only one or two people that I don't know. To say that, boss, I delegate to three of my wallet myself, and then I approach people that they should delegate. But there is one big wallet in my account who have delegated about 100,000 either to me. I don't know the person. I'm still trying to say thank you to the person, wherever the person is coming from. Yes.
So like maybe the follow-up is, are these people mostly coming from Africa, or do you think there's some external support also?
Yeah, yes, all is from Africa. It's only that big Wally who I don't know where he's coming from.
Yeah, it's just something I sort of think about in this context of, how we're identifying what's an African dRep versus, where is the dRep from? There's obviously the person who's holding the voting power for as the dRep, but there's the delegators. So something I'm just kind of thinking about. Maybe over to you, Darlington. You talked about being kind of an international traveler, living in different parts of the world between kind of the Western world and Africa. What do you see as kind of any, challenges in terms of holding ADA, for example, and being able to delegate to dReps? Either from, that perspective or from a interest perspective of how is, blockchain even relevant to me? I'll let you take that in whichever direction you want.
Thank you very much. Yeah, one of the things I when I tell people about, and one of the ways that one strong policy Lido has for all of his educational content is we tell people to not buy ADA unless they have lots of extra free money laying around somewhere, or they inherited something and they want to. But we pretty much stay away from encouraging people to buy ADA. My second highest dRep got all their ADA by working in Cardano and contributing to Cardano. So we really try to expose those areas where people can participate in Cardano, even if it's just for fun, whether it's testing out an incentivized preview network, or participating in Project Catalyst, or connecting people who have come through our mentorship program to teams looking for extra development help or one-off type things, to even sometimes picking up Back in the day, Swam and other communities around Cardano used to have a lot of bounties that you would get paid in ADA. So we really try to focus on that to empower people to participate, just from a personal interest point of view. Because now it's, if they don't end up increasing their ADA holding by a significant amount, their interest increases by a significant amount, and they're still able to participate in other ways. And I'm glad now, as part of just the whole Cardano governance structure, we have these MBOs that we're still trying to figure out how they work. And with the MBO, the voting power structure is usually different than on chain. It's not one ADA, one vote. And people are able to, corral around MBOs to be able to have a stronger voice, just to be able to put an idea out there, whether or not it gets implemented in its entirety or
I
if
guess,
it affects
Darlington, my
decision.
question is
Yeah.
is how is that kind of concept received differently, based on where, your audience is listening from? If you could highlight any differences. When you're talking to people
Like
back in Kenya
between the
about it.
continent versus
Yeah.
outside of, yeah. Right. Well, places like Kenya, there's a lot of value around community and things of this nature, and just being together. There's lots of importance on after working your full day or half day or however many how long you work, that you connect with people. And so all of those things resonate more. Participatory governance resonate more with when I'm talking to people in Kenya, right? Whereas in the US is more heavy on the investment part, because a lot of people in the US, for some reason, have multiple jobs, and are very busy. So if they don't seem to have time to make room for community and sort of come together. So usually the way that they're able to participate is just purchase power, right?
No, that makes sense. And I think, yeah, that's sort of that's relevant, right, to what a lot of our different African cultures have in common. But maybe next I'll go to Laurentine, to speak. I'm curious from your perspective. I think you talked to a lot of different African countries, and in particular, difference between French and English, Francophone and Anglophone African countries. If you notice any difference either on the regulatory side, or whatnot, of how people are handling the cryptocurrency space.
Okay, thank you. I would not like to start from the regulatory aspect of cryptocurrency, how people are handling, but what I am here to advocate is the fact that you see a space like this, we are having it in English. Meanwhile, we have a large community, Cardano community, that is French speaking, that cannot participate in these conversations just because of language barrier. So what we do is that we try to be a bridge to create a platform also where we can convey such discussions with, have this kind of discussions with our community. We started it, we got an opportunity.
Sorry, Laurentine. So maybe what you would like to answer is, hurdles that you notice, in information gaps. How does that present itself? When you're educating in Francophone communities, what is kind of the biggest hurdle that you have?
Yeah, the biggest one is an example that I want to give is when we, in 2020, 2023, we had a training on Haskell and Bluetooth, where we trained 10 developers, but the training was not really consistent, and some of them could not continue. And because of lack of resources, in the Cardano ecosystem. So some of them continued with different blockchains. So today, one of the biggest challenge is the language barrier in terms of material, training material, but in spite of that, I have one person that I'm very proud of. He was able to continue, and recently he came to me and told me that he's developing dApps to solve problems here. And I was thinking if we could give more people the opportunity to do something like that in Burkina Faso here and also in other French-speaking countries. And during our meetings with the Francophone, Cardano Francophone Corner, other community members from other countries mentioned the same gap. Yeah, in Congo, for instance, we had a comment saying that they started a course in blockchain development, but because translation was involved, interpretation, it couldn't go far. So we are trying to create a platform where people can also get involved, whether in terms of technical education or even community building, getting people involved in the governance discussions and participating globally in the Cardano ecosystem. But when it comes to the regulatory aspects, I know that in Burkina Faso here, the current government is very open to new technologies, and we work with lecturers, university lecturers who are really encouraging us because there's something going on here that I will not want to disclose so much. Yeah, that is why we are so much interested in continuing the education, the blockchain education, especially development, blockchain development, because the need is there. People are open to it, to even the AI market. We are also trying to explore that. So I just wanted to
well, we won't make you expose government secrets then. And Nana Safo, I see your hand is up. Did you want to add to this or take us another direction?
Well, I just wanted to add to the conversation about the language barriers. I think it is something very prevalent in our African community. I mean, at Wada, we have experienced this firsthand. Starting from Fund 1, it was really much, only English-speaking folks. But at the end of the day, we are trying to penetrate into the African regions where, Francophone was more like their native language, and it was a bit difficult. I mean, it was like extremely difficult. And even now it is somehow difficult because on calls like this, normally we are speaking English, and then the French communities are unable to sort of comprehend with what discussions we are having, right? They would have to rely on sort of translations. And I remember back then, WADA were doing pretty well in terms of, having people on call to sort of translate whatever slide that we talk about. But at some point, we realized that, this is not really being productive in the sense that it was really killing time, like really fast. So, as a dRep also, it is pretty much the same that, you prepare your content in English and then you put it out there, for instance, on X, and, the French speaking community mostly are not able to engage with your post simply because it is in English, right? So I feel this is a huge barrier, and maybe in the future when we devise a solution to it, I think it is going to be really useful for the entire dRep community. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, well, and I think, we're talking about English and French, but what about all the native languages as well? And maybe Ubio, I can pull you in here. I see you nodding. Nigeria is an English-speaking country, right? But do you have any challenges with communication?
Yeah. So maybe what I would want to add to that is there's something called colloquialism and in communication, and I think that's the one thing that makes communication to become clearer than the average context of whatever is being said. So the colloquial context of words is very, very important because that is the way the natives actually do receive and understand whatever phrase is being used in that place. Nigeria has more than 300 languages, but English is actually the lingua franca. But if you want to communicate with a true Nigerian, you're not going to be using English. You are going to be using our colloquial English, right? So we've been able to nativize English to our own context. And so if you really want to get a lot of Nigerians engaged in a context or in a conversation, you don't just use the Queen's English, you have to use our kind of English. And I think so, this is one thing I just want to bring to the conversation, that most times when we talk about the whole Africanization of making it African, most time people just assume that we're talking about the African language. Absolutely no. It could even be in the same English, but suited to our own context, suited to how we understand and experience events and phenomenons, right? So this is where all of this is always lacking most time when we're talking about making it African, and that when we Africans understand these things, we'll be able to engage more. So yeah, that's what I want to add.
Awesome. And I know we have a couple people off camera, so I don't want to exclude you from the conversation. But Kit, are you still here?
Yeah, yes, I am.
All right. I wanted to just ask if you wanted to talk about anything that you see as a factor in preventing your local community from participating in governance, whether it be language or socioeconomic constraints.
Okay. Most of the points were actually said. I love what Saubio said about colloquialism in conversations and the language. But one thing I would say, when you're talking about participation in governance, I assume you mean like the in-depth participation, like the ones we're having, like the dRep participation. We need to understand it that most people, like majority of the people in Nigeria, in Africa really, they're in a fight for their life. They are trying to survive. So if you ask me what is wrong with people participating in governance, why are people not participating in governance? It's because the average person is thinking about how he wants to survive that day, and is not thinking about which dRep is supposed to be. So right, the issue is that the basic the system here in Africa is a little bit different. That's what we want them to understand over there from the Western world. We are in blockchain for two different reasons, right? The Africans, the people from the Western world, they came to blockchain because of the stagnation that they have in a system. They have a stagnation. We don't even have that system. Our system is from beginning to the end flawed, where the common people cannot even make ends meet. Is it the population of people that are suffering that I would ask to come and join a Twitter space or come and join this Zoom call meet to discuss about governance? No. So one of the main issues is the deeply rooted issues of just human survival, to be honest. Right? That is what is injuring most. And I feel like we could that's where incentivization comes in. But it has to be done in a really, really structured way to ensure that we are getting a commensurate value of what we are incentivizing for. So that's what I would add to the conversation.
No, I think what you say is really relevant. And Seydu, I do see your hand up, but I wanted to let Goma jump in really quick first. As you know, Martin has been, we got a text a couple of weeks ago of, not being able to join the call because of being in like an active area. So maybe Martin, you can talk about what motivates you to participate in governance in Cardano governance, when you have, so much going on in your immediate surroundings. Are you still with us, Martin?
And just to chip in here, whilst we're waiting for Martin, Martin is actually speaking for the Goma stake pool. Martin, are you here now? And deep, deep, deep respect again to the Goma folks trying everything that they can to join, to sort of engage in Cardano governance despite some of the tricky situations on the ground. All right, back to you, Megan.
Yeah, well, he might have lost connection, so maybe Sadhu, we'll let you jump in here.
Right, so Megan, thanks so much once again. On my end, I just want to talk on why some of the challenges that we are facing as dReps here in Africa. Let me put Ghana for the context. I think we have not done enough education to our people on the need for them to participate in governance or in the need for them to participate in Cardano governance. Because I remember when I was doing the dReps onboarding, I could realize that a lot of them were not even understanding that aspect of the roadmap of Cardano, Voltaire, to see. So they were somehow asking, are you going to take our EIDA? If you are asking them to delegate their voting power to you, they were asking, are you taking our EIDA? What are you going to use it for? All those questions. We are trying to let them understand the need for them to do that. I also understand that a lot of our EIDA holders here do not even stick their EIDA to even stick to operators. That is why probably some of these our stake pools are even suffering here on our end. So we needed to do a lot of education because I remember 2 people are asked to delegate their voting power to me. I have to meet them in person, explain to them the need for them to do that, and then also assist them to just get the dRep ID and then go in and then do the delegation to me. So it's important on the technical aspect. So another key problem for some of them, you give them your dRep ID, they are not able to delegate to you. Why? You have to even meet the person, assist the person to do that. So on our end, education is one, technical challenge is another problem that is hindering our participation or in Cardano governance.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. So maybe we're getting ready to transition to talking about more of solutions, but before we do that, is there anything that we're missing here from our conversation on, the hurdles and the challenges that we face, that you all face as African dReps? Anyone want to jump in?
Or I can't seem to find the hand button. So can
That's okay. No, it's great. Interactive. We'll go you, and then we'll let Nana Safo jump in, and then Lauren too.
This will be quick. I think there needs to be a bigger effort from the African community to catalog and showcase all the things that's happening here. I mean, Wada historically I've done a good job with that with the hubs and just having the presence in the different community. And I know there's an effort right now going on to maybe help with that. But I think that's missing, like the discovery piece. How do you know what's going on next door?
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to highlight in, the beginning of the discussion where we're talking about where you get your information, and we kind of talked about connectivity issues and a lot of it being on Twitter. But it's hard, if you miss a live space, you can watch the recording, but then you might not get to answer your question if you had a question, or you can download documents, but they might not be in a language that's, relevant to you. So I think that's a good point. Nana Safo?
Yeah. Thanks, Megan. I think I've enjoyed the discussion so far. I would really want to highlight the fact that lack of policy directions and policy engagement is pretty much something that has really, really, really sort of distracted our participation as Africa in terms of this Web3 ecosystem. As part of during my research, I discovered that some entities have come up. So entities like Web3 Africa and also UABA, they are trying really, really well to sort of get the government to formulate a policy that will sort of see to true adoption of cryptocurrencies and even Web3 ecosystem in Africa. And I think if that is something that is able to go through and then they are able to sort of accept and also back it up, then definitely it will be a game changer for the Web3 ecosystem, because for the lack of these policy directions, central banks obviously do not encourage their customers or even their citizens, to sort of participate in these Web3 activities, because they are always tagging it as scam and, you lose your money and stuff. And for that reason, a lot of people don't have interest in even wanting to sort of own cryptocurrencies or even do something with the blockchain. And I mean, one thing really that has also disturbed us really is the fact that we have always misconstrued blockchain application with cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people are yet to really come up with, come across the education that when we mention blockchain applications, we are not talking about just cryptocurrencies. We are really talking about the tech that sort of allow the creation of the cryptocurrency that you are seeing. So if you want to enter into the ecosystem, feel free and enter. Just be very cautious of, where you play in terms of which platforms you engage, and also which individuals you engage, and then just be careful. In terms of cyber security, like be up your game, and then engage meaningfully and carefully. And I'm sure that once we get there, all of these hurdles that we are seeing now in terms of participation, low participation, obviously, is something that we are going to jump, right? Because I see for the other parts of the world, it is a lot of the big men who are holding the bags, who are really engaging in these activities, right? But if you come to our part of the world, it is sad that the big men who are holding bags are not engaging in some of these activities. And it is really something that we have to work on as a continent to be able to, catch up with the game of participation. Thanks, Megan, for moderating this. I enjoyed myself.
Laurentine, you put your hand down, but I still want to give you the chance to join in this.
Yeah, I wanted to say something, but part of what Nana Safo said is what I wanted to say. Yeah, so I'm okay now.
All right. Well, next we'll do, in preparation next month, we'll go more in depth into solution discussions. But we've just spent about, 45 minutes, 50 minutes talking about challenges that we face. I wanted to do just a quick round table of where you think we should be focusing some of our solution energy, highlighting, wherever you think is the biggest challenge. If it's a communication issue, I know Darlington, you really talked on having a shared knowledge base, for example, that's more accessible. But maybe we could highlight what you all think in terms of preliminary solution. And while that's going on, the next session will be open for Q&A. So people who want to start thinking about their questions can start typing them into the chat, or writing them down on a paper. If you're like me, who forgets as soon as someone else starts talking, feel free to be writing down your questions as people are talking. And we might not have a chance to go through everyone, but I do want to see if is the Goma dRep back? I heard from Boaz that he wasn't able to talk, but Martin, are you here with us?
Hi, Megan.
Oh, great, you're back. So I wanted to just give you a chance to talk about where you see focusing energy into solutions for any of these challenges we've discussed. Can you hear us? I lost your audio. It might be challenging for Martin to connect. So maybe I'll pass it over to Maureen. And Martin, if you're able to type in the chat, I can read your response out. So Maureen, what do you think we should be focusing our energy in fixing first?
Okay, first of all, I want to really say that I'm happy with everything that Kit said. After he spoke, like he spoke my mind with all the challenges that we have here. And one of it being that we are just trying to. So when you're talking to an African about governance, first, you don't have to be telling them that, oh, the Cardano community is so great. And when you come here, I mean, it's great. I'm not saying it's not great. I love it. But you don't go around saying that to people or telling them that, that people don't know what a dRep is. People barely know what a blockchain is, right? So I think we should focus on education. And by education, I don't mean we should hold online webinars because, hey, people are not online, okay? People are not online. We organized an on-site event in Chang, Memos and I, and then people showed up. We were so happy. And then we organized and we said that, oh, you know what? We are not going to show you how to create a wallet now. We will show you online when we go back to our various homes because we don't have enough time. And guess what? We organized the online event and nobody showed. It really sucked. Well, okay, one guy showed up, but he left. So look at these education things we're talking about. We have to really focus on context, right? Holding online events might not be as effective. I think that the Cardano community needs to really, really decentralize such that some of these events should be local, while most of them should be decentralized in such a way. Regions have their events, educate people, and then if there is a global event, that can happen. I know that has been happening, but we need to intensify it, especially in Africa. And also, please, when you're going to talk to Africans about Cardano, don't tell them that it's a great, tell them something else, please. Don't go, you have to tell them what exactly it's going to bring to them. Because I'm in here, I'm using my, how do we call this? Sorry, this thing that lamp, it's kind of like I think YouTubers use it.
Ring
light. Thank you. I'm using my ring light over here because I don't have electricity, right? I mean, it's coming on and off. So these are the challenges that people are going through, and we cannot also engage in conversations online when they're happening. That's why you go to Twitter Spaces and it's always people from the UK, Canada. I go to Twitter Spaces and I'm usually, most often, the only African there. And they ask me, hey, where's your African community? Well, I could add you to the group of 100 people, but nobody's online, bro. So we need to focus and really decentralize. Thank you.
Yeah, over to you, Ubio.
Yeah, pardon my manners. I had to raise because I have to drop very soon. And because I wanted to extend the arguments that has been brought up by Maureen, as I feel is extremely valid. So I want to extend it from another context, I think related to what I said earlier, but also furthering the case to what she said. How do we, when we talk about Cardano and the need to engage, we shouldn't start by telling people it's a great stuff. And I just want to say, understanding, so this again means the need for true decentralization in Cardano. And what is true decentralization? True decentralization is a decentralization that understands the context and the scenarios upon which that very theory or system exists, right? So Cardano coming to Africa exists under a particular context and system, right? So for example, when we talk about governance, like what Maureen said, the funniest thing is we don't even understand the African ideology or idea to governance, right? Unfortunately, Africans have a very negative view to governance, and extremely and rightfully so, because, for example, I keep telling people I don't really understand what governance means. I've never benefited from government in any way. I provide my own light. I live in an independent thing. I provide my own security, provide my own water, provide. So when you talk about governance in Africa, what people automatically understand is Paul Biya, Tinubu, and all these guys. And so they theoretically infuse that you want to bring that operational system into them. And then and that is what we must understand when we are decentralizing, that as we're decentralizing, we need to understand the context upon which that existing system already exists, right? And so people may not understand why Africa cannot engage in governance, because we don't inherently believe in governance as a system, and we don't engage it in the conceptual governance upon which our countries even exist, because we've built a system that allows us to exist despite governance, right? So I'm not theoretically very surprised that Africans want to use their ADA out of governance, right? People are not so willing to participate in the whole governance structure, because to them, this is all bullshit. They've actually been able to exist and progress without governance or government being able to influence or have a factor to that success. And so you're now telling them that you want to create a governance system for them in Cardano. How do they relate? And again, this is why we're talking about the need for an African voice, the need for an African context, contextualization, and to colloquialism, like the way I put it, to everything that is going on. Because when we understand that, we will now understand why governance is such a big issue for people in Africa. We may not have the big bucks, I agree, but we have the big numbers. We have a lot of people in Africa. So why are a lot of them not participating in governance? Yeah, and they just took the light to prove what I'm saying.
It was like your mic drop.
Yeah, that was a mic drop.
This is unacceptable.
The government doesn't want the truth, you know?
Yeah.
Important what you just
Wow.
said.
Right. Megan, so maybe I should just take it up, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right next? Yeah, thanks. Ubio has pretty much said it all. The only bit I would want to add to what he said was the fact that, in Africa, our educational curriculum is some way, in a sense that it prevents us from truly, participating in how the world is even evolving, right? And I think it is about time that we take up this initiative of really taking it to our government agencies, or even our leaders, probably through policies and whatever, so that these evolutions are sort of ingested into the curriculum of what the next generation are learning. I always say that the generation ahead of us probably didn't do what they were supposed to do at the time, and for that reason, we are seeing ourselves in this whole shenanigans. But what have we got to do as our generation to ensure that the next generation are not going to also inherit the same issues that we are also talking about today, right? Because I don't think it will be very useful for us to, probably in the next 10 years, see the next generation talking about the same issues we are talking about today. For that reason, it is very important for us to pay attention to how we can revolutionize this whole ecosystem to ensure that right from day one, when they step their foot in schools, they are being taught the right things so that they can be able to participate meaningfully. And what I'm saying is that we need to look at local level education. So let's take our education to the grassroots. Probably start from maybe senior high schools, or maybe junior high schools. Start teaching them about the technicalities. Not too much of technicality, but then a good amount of the technicalities, and also the concept, the whole concept, right? Teach them about it, and then they can now begin to take it out from there gradually. So by the time they are done with university, they already have broad knowledge base of what this whole ecosystem is all about. And then now it becomes difficult. I mean, very easy for us to sort of swing them in so that they can now become active participators and not just spectators on calls, like for instance, Lauren mentioned. You get on Twitter spaces, it is, a bunch of Westerners or, Europe, folks on there who are discussing issues. And the funny thing is when you see, those living outside of Africa have not had the chance to even experience Africa, trying to discuss and identify solutions for African problems. And I think that is something that we need to take it up ourselves as dReps to step up the game in terms of representing truly and ensuring that we are giving them the right solutions that we need. I overheard a discussion where initially Cardano was trying something in Ethiopia, but it didn't work out. That educational ID stuff, it didn't work out, and the reason was that there was a change of government, and it delayed stuff, and things didn't work out right. So they tried their best, but how can we from within also ensure that we are pushing the limit so much so that when they bring their solutions now, the solutions that we probably have sort of suggested to them, when they finally bring it or bring the resources to implement those solutions, there is no form of hurdles like government hurdles, but then be able to implement successfully. So for me, I think we should look at or pay attention to grassroots education, start from DHS, teach them through it, and then we can probably progress from there.
Thanks, Nana Safo. And then over to you, Seydou.
All right, so I'll just take it from away from education because a lot of the my co-panelists have already spoke about education. It's a laudable point that we have to take our energy towards to. But another thing that I've foreseen among the African crypto enthusiasts, or to say blockchain enthusiasts, is that on specific to Cardano, a lot of them are holding their ADA on the centralized exchanges. I'm familiar with some of these traders. They are holding it on centralized exchanges. You ask them to delegate to you. They don't even have a Cardano native wallets in their phones, on their laptops. So they have to just get their wallets before they can then delegate to you. I remember one Catalyst fund I have to seek support from these guys. They were telling me that they don't even have Cardano native wallets. So education is very important, as the guys have already mentioned. We get them on board, tell them the need for them to participate or help us to make decisions to better fulfill ourselves. The second thing I want to add is that as Maureen has made it clear, we have to try our possible to be more active online this going forward. Let's try our possible as dReps on coming from this region of Africa to be more active online. Let's join spaces and let's join virtual workshops to also tell our story and seek support so that our direct pools probably will increase our voting power. The last I'll talk about is where is it? I wrote it here. Let's seek support from the entire Cardano community, not specifically to our folks. Because as we mentioned, we don't have the backs, but definitely if we try to put ourselves or brand ourselves very well, we get more support from outside. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to next month's session to dive some more in depth into some of these, solution concepts. But for now, we're going to pause that conversation unless it comes up again in the questions. But feel free to type your questions in the chat. If you're on Twitter, you can also type questions there, and then I'll read them through. I do notice there's one question here in the Zoom call. I'm going to read through it and then I think we'll break it apart, but I'll read through the whole thing first. So Melanie writes, as an ADA holder, how do people find the dRep that aligns with their own values? From what I can tell, you need to follow social media or scroll through the directory on GovTools, which is clunky and time consuming in my opinion. Also, it was a great question about connectivity. I noticed some dReps have links in the directory to connect to them and some don't. So how do I find the dRep who focuses on environmental issues, for example? And does the dRep include my opinion or what I care about with surveys, responses? How do I know what my dRep is voting? So that's kind of a packed question, but maybe we could take it one piece at a time. So I think, the first point that's brought up here is, how do I find a dRep who aligns with my values? Maureen, you raise your eyebrows.
I was
You don't
saying
want to answer?
yeah, it's a good question, and it's something I have been screaming on Spaces because the you need to. I see she said that you have to be on social media. That's the first one. The second one she said is that you go to golf tools, which is pretty much the only thing, because on my social media I don't have my all my direct objectives and all of that. It's too long for Twitter, so uh someone mentioned that all dReps should have websites. I didn't agree with him. Only because some dReps, especially in Africa, cannot afford to just create a website and then host it for nothing. I mean, you need money for that. So, I think that's one of the things. So a dRep, if you want to find out which dRep, I'm sorry, at this level we are, you have to go through the clunky golf tools. Yeah, and the objectives are outlined there. Or if you're not on social media, that's tricky. I think on Lido Nation or Intersect there's a list of dReps. I don't know.
Yeah, on GovTools.
Yeah, golf
Yeah,
tools. Oh no, there's a forum, Cardano forum on. I can't tell if it's Intersect that has the forum or it's Lido Nation.
Yes,
Yeah,
Cardano.
maybe Darlington is going to jump in, and I think that we're going to deep dive on this next session, which is May 1st. Hope to see you all. But Ben was on the call a little earlier on. So one of the projects that he's actually doing is ecosystem mapping for dReps. Sort of the metadata aspects of it. So yeah, we will deep dive a bit more. But for today, I think it's just sort of figuring out who is representing what. I will give it over to Megan and maybe Darlington or Nana Safu.
Well, I think right now it's up to each dRep how they get feedback and update their community. Obviously, it's one of the glorious things about Cardano and the blockchain is you can see what happens, but it does require a level of technical savvy to be able to actually follow up on all of that. So I think honestly, that last part of the question in terms of how is the dRep getting feedback from its delegators and how are they communicating how they vote, that's individual based on dReps if you're not willing to kind of scroll through some of these platforms. Nana Safo, I think your hand was up first, and then we'll go to Darlington and then Laurentine.
Right. Thank you. And the question that Melanie asked is a very important question, and it is something that is really sort of stressing the community in terms of how they are able to communicate or probably engage with their dReps. Wada dRep, for instance, I can see we have sort of huge following, about 65, 67 delegators so far. But truthfully, we have not really been able to engage our delegators and say, these are our delegators, and you're having maybe a meeting with them or stuff, right? But it is normal. It is probably how it's supposed to be. But that is where even the feature in tempo.vote becomes useful, because with tempo.vote, you're able to communicate with your community by setting up a poll just to sort of convey information from them in terms of how they think about a certain governance action or maybe something that is going on in the ecosystem. But I also understand that it is not all delegators who probably would have even the time or even the opportunity to go on there to go and look at those. But to answer Melanie, I think there are a couple of gov tools that you can use if you feel like the gov.tools itself is sort of a bit clunky and kind of making it difficult for you. You can always look at something like 1694.io. You can also look at tempo.vote. You can also look at either start.net to sort of have that sort of variation in terms of UI and UX experience. And I think that is something that will help you in probably allocating your dRep so that you can delegate to them successfully. Thanks, Megan.
Darlington.
Without repeating what's been said, if you are a dRep, the ability for you to have your own website is on the roadmap for 1694.io. If you didn't know, that's a product that the Lighter crew is behind. So let's keep chatting more so we can make that thing more useful.
Yeah, great information. Laurentine?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to what Seidu said earlier about communication on social media. Yeah, I understand that the question is for those who are not on social media, but for those who are on social media, most dReps, you see that they add their they will indicate that they are dReps. For instance, the Incuba Hub will indicate dRep, add dRep next to that. I saw that Wada does that also. So other dReps who are not doing it to make sure that, okay, on their social media, they should add that they are dReps. And also communication is very important. And as a community, we should support each other. I see that sometimes somebody will post something very important that could give them visibility, but lacks support from our own community members. So if we can start, because we, for instance, we want to begin to create content, and that is the idea I got from Ben when we were in Kenya, content to educate people in French, because we want to, reach out to the French-speaking community. But at the same time, the challenge we have is that we are trying to communicate in two directions. Like we want people to know in English because mostly the community on X, for instance, is English speaking. But at the same time, we want to create a content to address that will be for the French-speaking community. So I'm just asking. For me, I just registered as a dRep. I don't have any delegation yet, but I believe that with more communication to happen. So I'm just pleading that if you see somebody's post, don't just ignore it. Please try and give some, let's follow each other, support each other, and then we'll move from there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Laurentine. And I think this was an amazing discussion. I want to thank each of the dReps who made it to the call today and participated. I hope to see some of you again next month for our next Wada Forum Space. That will be same place, same time, Zoom and Twitter. But we are coming to a close with our session, and I wanted to bring Mercy back up for some closing remarks.
This has been such an amazing event. Thanks to our panelists, thanks to our moderator, Megan, those that joined us both in Zoom and also on Twitter. We do want to give a very big shout out to Intersect for pushing for this event. It was something that was close to our hearts, but Intersect sort of made it happen in terms of funding it and also keeping us on our toes. So we are grateful for that, Hannah and Valeria. Thank you. The kind of viewpoints that have come out today, shows the importance of making sure that we have everybody at the table. I myself, I have lived on 3 continents, currently live on 2 very proudly, North America as well as Africa. And I see different viewpoints, like I see the Western viewpoint. And then, I'm in Africa, I'm talking with Africans and I see the African viewpoint. And it is so different from the Western viewpoint. And that is why, by and large, there's that push for diversity, because there's richness in bringing so many viewpoints to the table. What we have managed to do today is actually to give a face and also to give perspectives and to show, how some of these viewpoints can be so very different. We are hoping that next month, as we've said, we're going to continue this discussion, even from a more sort of solution focused. But in the meantime, for those of you that have joined us on Twitter, in Zoom, you have seen, our dReps. They are human. These are not just code and numbers. Please delegate to them. You've heard what they are saying. Let's bring them really strongly to the table. The last thing that I'll say, and it was alluded to in the discussion, that maybe at this time we don't have the delegation from a dRep's perspective. We know that will change gradually. These are still very early days. We are not discouraged. But what we need to remember, that nobody can take away our voice or our participation. So the fact that we don't have ADA doesn't mean that we cannot participate. It does not mean that we don't have a voice. And I do want to remind us right now that the budget, what is going to define Cardano ecosystem over the next year and beyond. There's been some proposals that have been put on Gov2. Please, as dReps, go have a look, comment, and put your viewpoint. Wada itself has put in a proposal, and basically what that proposal is seeking to do is to really get to the ground again and listen to the perspective and how Cardano can find product market fit in Africa properly, like some of the things that have been mentioned in terms of the challenges and how things can be different. I think that is it from us. Thank you very much, everyone. Megan, did I leave anything out?
No, I think this is good. We'll share some links in the chat as well from our sponsors at Intersect. Wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of the accurate knowledge bases to be checking. They are being updated continuously, so you should be they should be a good source of information for exact information. But I think we did a good job keeping exactly to our time for today. So please do, stay engaged, follow some of the new dReps you may have met here today, follow on social media, etc. And please come back next month and join us for more of this kind of conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everyone.